"Are you lost too, mister?" asked the little girl to the lonely CEO at the airport. What he did next changed everything. The airport buzzed with the chaotic hum of holiday travel. It was December 24th, and every terminal overflowed with passengers eager to get home for Christmas. The loudspeaker overhead crackled every few minutes, announcing delays and gate changes in a monotone voice barely audible over the crowd. People rushed past each other, dragging luggage, juggling coffee cups, checking their phones. Graham Locke sat still amid the noise. He occupied a seat near a large window tucked in a quieter corner of Terminal C, far from the hustle of the central hall. Outside, planes were grounded, and snowflakes danced in swirling gusts across the tarmac. A delay notice blinked across the screen above his gate. Flight 471, delayed until further notice. Graham didn't react. His black wool coat lay draped over the back of his chair. A leather briefcase rested by his polished shoes, and beside it, incongruously, sat a small, worn teddy bear. The bear didn't match the man. Graham was the image of control: tailored suit, silver watch, sleek haircut. But the teddy bear was clearly old. Its stitching had come loose in one ear, and one button eye was slightly off-center. He held it gently, not like an executive clinging to a meaningless object, but like a father remembering a child. It was a birthday gift, one that never reached her. His expression remained unreadable, but his eyes, tired, dark, distant, told a different story. They weren't fixed on anything in particular, not the screens, not the people, just somewhere else. Maybe 5 years ago, maybe further. Suddenly, a tug on his sleeve. Graham blinked, startled. He turned. Standing before him was a little girl, no older than 5. Her cheeks were flushed pink from the cold. Her soft brown curls peeked out from under a knit hat shaped like a cat. She clutched a tiny backpack to her chest, its zipper slightly open, revealing the edge of a storybook inside. She tilted her head and asked earnestly, "Are you lost too, mister? I can help you find your mommy." Graham froze. Of all the words, of all the people, this small voice, so innocent, so certain, sliced clean through his carefully built walls. He opened his mouth to say, "I'm not lost," but the words never came. He looked into her eyes, wide, round, filled with light. There was no fear in them, just kindness, something brave, and something he hadn't seen in a long time: belief. So instead, he asked softly, "Are you lost?" The little girl nodded, but her smile didn't falter. "Mommy was here, but then I saw the candy shop, and when I turned back, she was gone. But it's okay. I'm looking for her. Want to come?" Graham hesitated. Everything logical told him this was someone else's child. Someone was probably already searching. He should alert airport staff, get security, follow protocol. But he didn't move. This girl, this tiny stranger, had reached into his silence and pulled something to the surface, something he thought he had buried for good. He stood up slowly, towering over her, but she didn't step back. She simply extended her mitten-covered hand. He looked at her hand, then at the bear on the chair, then back at her, and he nodded. "Let's find her. Together." She grinned, like she had just won a prize. "Okay." She slipped her hand into his, completely trusting, and began leading him away from the window. They walked past security checkpoints, food courts, and souvenir shops. He said nothing, just followed her steady pace. Her tiny fingers wrapped around his. She chatted as they moved, about candy canes and how her mommy always sang songs when she was scared. Graham listened, really listened, for the first time in a long while. A few people glanced at them as they passed. Some smiled, some did a double-take. A tall man in a black suit walking hand in hand with a little girl in a cat hat. To the world, they looked like father and daughter. But to Graham, it was something else entirely. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about meetings or deadlines. He wasn't sitting in grief. He wasn't hiding from Christmas. He was walking, moving forward, and with each step, The echo of a child's voice from moments before repeated softly in his mind. "Are you lost too, mister?" Maybe he was, but now, maybe not so much. The terminal stretched endlessly, glowing under artificial lights. Graham walked beside Sophie, her small hand wrapped tightly around his fingers. Despite the crowd pressing around them, she walked with purpose, head held high. "Let's check the candy shop first," Sophie suggested, tugging his arm. "That's where I saw the jelly beans. Mommy doesn't like too much sugar, but she lets me have the red ones." They passed through a cluster of shops, each filled with holiday decorations and last-minute travelers. Graham followed Sophie's lead, watching the way she bounced from one store window to the next, scanning every face. "She has blonde hair like the sunshine," Sophie explained, "and she wears glasses when she writes. She's writing a story about a turtle who learns to fly." Graham raised an eyebrow. "A turtle who flies?" Sophie nodded proudly. "With a balloon?" "Mommy said anything's possible in stories." He almost laughed, but not in mockery. It caught him off guard, that quiet lift in his chest. "And every night she sings to me," Sophie added, swinging her little backpack. "Even if she's tired." They circled through the food court, then peeked into the airport play area. No sign of Clara. Graham knelt beside Sophie. Still no luck. She looked around, lips pursed in thought. "Maybe she's looking for me too, and we're just missing each other." "Maybe," he said softly. A passing airport employee paused, frowning slightly at the pair. "Excuse me, sir, is that your daughter?" Graham hesitated. It would have been easy to say no, but then Sophie looked up at him, eyes wide with trust. "Yes," he said quietly. "We're just trying to find her mom." The employee gave a polite nod. "Check in with the information desk if you haven't already. They might have gotten a report." "We will," Graham replied. As they continued walking, Sophie hummed under her breath. He recognized the tune. "Silent Night." Her version was off-key but sweet, just like a child's should be. "You're not scared?" he asked suddenly. Sophie shook her head. "Not really. Mommy always says, if you're lost, stay kind. Magic will find you." Graham looked down at her. "Magic, huh?" "Yeah," she said, grinning. "Christmas magic. I know we'll find her. I believe in it." There was a pause. Then, as if the words came from some forgotten part of him, Graham replied, "Maybe. So do I." And for the first time in years, he almost meant it. The security station was a blur of movement and quiet tension. Clara stood near the desk, her fingers clenched around the strap of her purse. Her blonde hair was messy from running through the terminal, and her cheeks were flushed, not from the cold, but from fear she had been trying desperately to hide. Her voice was steady when she spoke to the officer, but her eyes gave her away. "She's 5, brown curls, red coat, little cat backpack. Her name is Sophie. We were just heading toward gate 12 when she got distracted. I turned around, and she was gone." The officer nodded calmly. "We've made an announcement, ma'am. Sit tight. These things usually resolve fast. Kids are braver than we think." Clara tried to nod, tried to believe it. But the ache in her chest only grew. Across the terminal, Graham and Sophie were just approaching the main corridor again when a voice from the intercom buzzed above them. "If anyone has found a missing child matching this description." A nearby attendant, hearing the broadcast, looked at Sophie and Graham, then leaned over. "I think this might be about her," she said gently. "Come with me?" Sophie's eyes lit up. She turned to Graham. "See? I told you the magic would work." They followed the attendant past a few gates, then down a short hallway leading to the security station. The moment Sophie turned the corner, her eyes widened. "Mommy!" Clara looked up just in time to see her daughter running toward her. She dropped to her knees, arms open wide, just in time to catch the flying bundle of red coat and brown curls. "Oh, baby," Clara breathed, holding Sophie so tight it was as if she feared the world would try to take her again. "You're okay. You're okay." Sophie buried her face in her mother's shoulder. "I found you. I told you I would." Clara laughed through her tears. rocking her daughter in her arms. Then, slowly, she looked up, toward the man who had brought her back. Graham stood a few feet away, silent, uncertain. He shifted his weight slightly, as if about to turn and walk off, unnoticed. But Clara stood up, still holding Sophie. Her eyes met his. "Wait," she said, stepping forward. "You brought her back to me. I just kept her company," Graham replied. "She did all the work." Clara smiled, eyes glistening. "Still, thank you. I don't even know your name." He hesitated, then offered a hand. "Graham." She took it. Her grip was warm. "Clara." For a moment, the world around them faded, the noise of the airport, the shuffling of passengers, even the low murmur of announcements. There was just the three of them, a little girl safe in her mother's arms, a man who had not smiled in years, and a woman who had held on through hope alone. As Clara stepped back, she noticed something in Sophie's hands. Nestled between her fingers was a worn, plush teddy bear. Clara's brows lifted. "Where did you get that, sweetheart?" Sophie turned the bear gently. "It was in his bag." He said nothing about it, but it looked lonely. Clara looked back at Graham. He paused, then offered the faintest smile. "It used to belong to someone important." Clara didn't ask more. She didn't need to. And somehow, in that quiet understanding, something unspoken passed between them. The storm outside had grounded more flights. The airport buzzed with tension as people rushed for updates, stood in long lines, or sprawled across chairs trying to get comfortable. Overhead, another announcement echoed. "Flight 674 to Denver has been delayed. Next update in 2 hours." Clara glanced up at the board, her hand resting gently on Sophie's back. Her daughter had fallen asleep in her arms, warm now, safe, but utterly exhausted. She looked around. Most food spots were packed. A few seats were still open, but the idea of spending hours sitting on cold plastic again made her wince. Beside her, Graham checked his watch. Then, as if making a quiet decision, he turned to her. "There's a small place upstairs. Quiet. Warm food. Would you like to join me?" Clara blinked. "You don't have to." "I know," he said gently, "but I'd like to. You both look like you could use a break." Clara hesitated only a moment longer, then nodded. "I'd like that, thank you." The restaurant wasn't fancy, just a tucked-away cafe above the main concourse, but it was quiet, with soft lighting and corner booths where the chaos of the airport faded to a distant hum. A waitress showed them to a booth near the window. Graham helped Clara settle Sophie onto the cushioned seat, folding her coat to use as a makeshift pillow. The little girl curled up instantly, her breathing soft and even. They ordered simple meals, soup, bread, hot tea, and for a while they ate in comfortable silence, interrupted only by the clinking of spoons and the occasional announcement echoing from below. Clara watched Graham as he stirred his tea. For all his polished appearance, tailored suit, sleek watch, there was something quiet and steady about him, something unexpectedly kind. She cleared her throat. "I really appreciate this. We were supposed to have a short layover. I didn't plan for delays." "Where are you headed?" he asked. "Portland," she said. "New city, new start. I've got a friend who offered us a place to stay while I look for work. I write children's books at night, but mostly I waitress. It's been a stretch." Graham nodded. "That's brave." Clara smiled faintly. "Some days it feels brave. Most days it just feels like surviving." The waitress returned quietly with an extra mug and a fresh pot of tea. Then, to Clara's surprise, she laid a small fleece blanket over Sophie's sleeping form. "I didn't order that," Clara said, confused. The waitress smiled and glanced toward Graham. "He did. Said the little one might get cold." Clara looked at him. "You didn't have to." He shrugged. It looked like she needed it. Clara stared at him for a moment, heart unexpectedly tight. "Most people don't notice," she murmured. Graham met her eyes, his voice low. "You're doing a good job. I hope someone's told you that lately." Clara froze. Of all the things she expected to hear from a stranger, that was not one of them. Not something so gentle, so needed. She swallowed. Not recently. Well, he said, finishing the last of his tea, then let me be the first. For the first time, Clara didn't feel like someone being pitied. She felt seen, understood. She glanced at Sophie, peacefully asleep under the soft blanket. Then she looked back at Graham. "Thank you, Graham." He nodded once, his expression unreadable, but softer than before. And just like that, in the middle of a crowded airport, with delays and strangers all around, something rare unfolded. Not a rescue, not a romance, just connection. Simple, unexpected, and real. The snowstorm had stretched through the night, grounding flights and draining energy. By morning, the airport buzz had dulled into a quieter hum. Passengers were exhausted, children fussy, announcements repetitive. To ease crowding, airline staff had begun ushering travelers into designated waiting areas based on ticket class. "Mr. Locke," said an attendant, spotting Graham, "we can move you and your companions to the VIP lounge now." Graham gave a quick nod, then turned to Clara and Sophie, who stood nearby watching as people shuffled past. Clara hesitated. "You do not have to include us," but Sophie tugged at her sleeve, eyes wide. "Can we go, Mommy? Mr. G said there's hot cocoa." Graham gave her a small smile. "There's even mini marshmallows." I checked. Clara looked between them. She didn't like feeling like someone who relied on others, but this wasn't just about her. And for once, a part of her wanted to say yes. She nodded. All right. The VIP lounge was a different world, quiet, warm, with soft lighting, cushy chairs, and a snack counter that made Sophie's eyes light up. Graham handled check-in with the staff, while Clara helped Sophie with her coat. They settled into a corner by the tall windows, where snow still fell in lazy spirals beyond the glass. Graham opened his laptop, answering a few emails while sipping black coffee. Clara leaned back in the plush chair, watching Sophie explore the small play corner nearby. A moment later, Sophie returned, holding a plastic checkerboard in both hands. She plopped it onto the coffee table between them. "We're playing," she announced. "Loser has to tell one real secret." Clara raised an eyebrow. "Oh boy, be careful. She always wins." Graham glanced from Clara to Sophie, then set his laptop aside. "I accept the challenge." Sophie's tongue poked from the corner of her mouth as she focused. Graham played well, but she played better. She won the first round. "Okay, Mr. G," she grinned. "Time to spill." Graham chuckled, rare and warm. "All right, when I was your age, I used to hide cookies under my bed. Lots of them, until my mom found a whole ant colony having a feast." Clara burst out laughing, covering her mouth. Sophie giggled uncontrollably. The second game began. Clara joined. Sophie won again. Clara groaned playfully. "Oh no." She glanced at Graham, then back at Sophie. "My turn, huh?" She paused, then quietly, "I used to be afraid of flying." Sophie gasped. "But we fly all the time." Clara smiled. "I had to learn, because being afraid and being stuck, they feel kind of the same." Her voice lingered in the air longer than expected. Graham watched her closely. The way she said it wasn't dramatic, it was honest, steady, and somehow it reached into the quiet part of him that had felt stuck for far too long. The next round never finished. Sophie began to blink slower and slower, her small body curled in the corner of the couch. Clara took off her coat and draped it over her daughter, gently brushing curls from her forehead. Graham remained still, observing them with a kind of reverence he could not name. Minutes passed. Sophie stirred, eyes half-lidded, and reached into her little cat-shaped backpack. She pulled out a crumbled, homemade cookie wrapped in tissue. She pressed it into Graham's palm. "I saved it for you," she mumbled. "Mommy says good things should be shared." Graham stared at the broken cookie. His throat tightened. It was the first gift he had received in 5 years that came with no strings. Not business. Not formality. He didn't eat it. He folded the tissue gently, placed the cookie into a small pouch inside his leather wallet. A keepsake. Clara noticed, but said nothing. Later, an airline staff member appeared. "Excuse me, your flight may resume in the next 2 to 3 hours." Clara sat up. She looked at Sophie, still dozing, then at Graham. They were all thinking the same thing. The end of this strange, quiet chapter might be near. Graham stood and pulled a small notepad from his jacket. He scribbled something down, folded the paper, and offered it to Clara. "In case you want to keep the game going." She unfolded it. A personal email, and beneath it, the title of the children's book she had mentioned last night. He remembered. She looked up at him, speechless. No grand gestures, no pressure, just one man, reaching out in the most human way. Clara smiled. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen. The storm had finally begun to ease. By morning, the airport was quieter, not because it was less crowded, but because something in the air had shifted. Hope, maybe. Movement. A chance to go home. Or towards something that might become one. Graham stood near the same tall windows in the VIP lounge, coffee in hand. The snow had stopped falling. Flights were being cleared to depart, one by one. An announcement echoed through the room. Flight 828 to Portland, now boarding at gate 17. Clara froze. That was theirs. She quickly glanced at the ticket in her coat pocket, then looked at Sophie, still curled under her jacket, half asleep but stirring. Graham looked over at them, reading the change in Clara's eyes before she said anything. "They moved us up," she said softly. "Looks like we're going first." Sophie stretched, blinking against the morning light. "Are we going now?" Clara nodded. She stood and helped her daughter into her coat. Her movements were calm, but there was something hesitant in them, as if each button she fastened was sealing up something unfinished. Graham remained where he was, his hands in the pockets of his coat. He didn't try to stop them. He didn't make a grand gesture, but he watched, closely. Clara reached for her bag, readying to leave. Then she turned to him. "I'm not good at saying the right things," she said, "but thank you for seeing us, for being kind without asking for anything." He shook his head. "You never needed saving, Clara, but it was good to walk beside you for a little while." Sophie looked up at him, her eyes as big and round as ever. "Will you be on the same flight next Christmas?" she asked, seriously. Graham smiled, but it was the kind of smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. "I'll try to be," he said gently. Then he crouched down to her level and extended his hand. "Thanks for letting me play checkers, and for the cookie." Sophie beamed and gave him a big hug instead. Just like that, they were gone. The boarding area at gate 17 was crowded. Clara and Sophie found their seats and waited. As the plane taxied toward the runway, Clara reached into her tote to get Sophie's sketchpad and found something she hadn't packed, a small, worn teddy bear. The same one Sophie had held tightly the first night at the airport, the one that had sat next to Graham in silence. Clara stared at it, stunned. Sophie noticed it and gasped. "He gave it back to us." Clara said nothing for a long moment. She turned the bear over slowly, like it might whisper something if she held it gently enough. There was no note, no tag, just the bear. But somehow, it said everything. Back in New York, the city was as loud and fast as ever. Graham entered his penthouse office, brushed snow off his coat, and paused in the doorway. The room was pristine, modern, perfect, but something about the stillness clung to him differently now. He sat at his desk and looked at the photo that had always been there, his daughter, smiling wide, frozen in time. He reached into his wallet and pulled out the tissue-wrapped cookie. Still there, still safe. Then, slowly, Graham opened his laptop. He clicked to compose a new message. To Clara. More. Subject. Bedtime stories. His fingers hovered over the keys. Then he typed, "You mentioned your favorite bedtime story once. I bought it. It's lovely. So are you." He stared at the screen for a long time. Then, without overthinking it, he hit send. There were no promises, no expectations, just a beginning, just a choice. It started with a thank you note. A simple email from Clara, sent the day after she and Sophie landed in Portland. She wrote it at the kitchen table of their tiny new apartment, with Sophie fast asleep beside her, hugging the teddy bear Graham had left behind. "I hope your meetings went well. Thank you again for the cocoa, the game, the quiet kindness. Sophie says she misses her Christmas friend." Graham read the message late at night, alone in his high-rise apartment overlooking Manhattan. He hovered over the reply button for a long time, unsure if he should answer. He did. Meetings were fine. The airport was better. "Tell Sophie I miss her too. Does she still cheat at checkers?" That was all. But it opened a door neither of them quite closed. Over the next few weeks, the messages continued. Sometimes, it was just a few lines, a book Sophie liked, a moment Clara found funny at her new job, a photo of a mug Graham had accidentally shattered in the office. But slowly, they became longer, deeper. Stories told only after midnight, when Sophie was asleep and the city outside Graham's window finally quieted. One night, Clara wrote, "Sophie asked if you knew Santa personally. She insists anyone who gives cocoa and carries a bear must be friends with him." Graham replied, "I do not know Santa, but I do know a brave little girl who believes in magic more than anyone I've ever met." Then, one evening, Clara's email came with an attachment. "This is something I've been working on, my newest story. I almost deleted it, but then I thought maybe you might want to read it. No pressure." The file was titled, "The Girl Who Got Lost But Found Everything." Graham opened it with the intention of skimming. He didn't stop reading until the last line. It was about a girl in an airport, a tall stranger, a bear, a cookie, and how sometimes home isn't a place, it's a hand you reach for when you're scared. There were parts that made him laugh, others that made his throat tighten. The girl in the story was Sophie, but also not. The man was him, but gentler, braver. The mother was Clara, in all her quiet strength. He didn't reply that night. Instead, Graham forwarded the manuscript, with no explanation, to an editor he trusted in a children's publishing house. "Read this," he wrote. "Just read it." He didn't tell Clara. For days, the emails between them continued. Business as usual. Jokes, stories. Sophie's drawings scanned and sent with titles like Mr. G and the Bear. Then, 2 weeks later, Clara sat at her small kitchen table again, checking her email before dinner. She saw the subject line first. "We'd love to publish your book." Her hand flew to her mouth. She read the message over and over, heart racing. The editor's note was kind, personal, warm. The book had touched them deeply. They wanted it for their winter line. The final paragraph made her freeze. "We especially love the dedication. The story feels rooted in something real, like kindness found when least expected, inspired by a true airport encounter, where magic didn't need reindeer, just two strangers, and a little girl who believed in the right kind of miracles." She reread the words, then glanced toward the living room, where Sophie was coloring on the floor. Clara didn't have to guess who had sent it. She opened her inbox, clicked on Graham's last message, and began to type. "You read it, didn't you? And you sent it. Without telling me." She paused, then added, "You did not need to fix anything for me, you know." But then, her fingers kept moving. "Still, you reminded me that maybe, just maybe, it was okay to let someone believe in me before I believed in myself." And with that, she hit send. Across the country, as snow fell quietly over New York, Graham read her reply. He closed his laptop and leaned back in his chair, heart a little lighter. He didn't reply right away. Some moments deserved silence, the kind that settles gently, like snowfall, before it becomes something more. The airport was just as loud, just as crowded, just as full of blinking lights and tired travelers as it had been a year ago. But Graham wasn't the same. He stood near the arrival gates. Not in a private lounge, not in a suit, not hiding. Today, he wore a dark sweater, jeans, and carried no laptop, no briefcase, only a small bouquet of winter flowers and a hardcover copy of The Girl Who Got Lost But Found Everything. The book had become a quiet success, but to Graham, it meant far more than bestseller lists. It was the map of something he hadn't known he was still searching for. He checked the screen again. Her flight had landed, and then, through the sea of passengers, he saw them. Clara, her golden hair tucked into a wool beanie, a worn coat pulled over her shoulder, and Sophie, now 6, but still with the same round eyes and brave steps, dragging a small pink suitcase behind her. Sophie saw him first. She dropped the suitcase and ran, arms wide. "You found us again." Graham knelt as she barreled into his arms. He held her tightly, pressing his forehead to hers. "No," he said softly. "I came to where I knew you'd be. People who matter shouldn't have to be found twice." Clara arrived seconds later, breath visible in the cold air, her eyes unreadable. She stopped a few feet away, unsure. He stood up slowly. "Hi," he said. "Hi," she replied, voice gentle. They looked at each other for a long moment. In Clara's arms was Sophie's old bear, still patched and loved. Graham noticed and smiled. "How was the flight?" he asked. "Long," she said, returning the smile. "But we're here. I heard someone got a long-term contract with a publisher in New York." "She did," Clara nodded. "And someone else offered to help us look at apartments, said he knew the city well." "I do," Graham said. She stepped a little closer. "And someone said he'd be here. I wasn't sure if he meant it." "I meant it." Clara glanced down at the flowers, then at the book in his hand. Her book, the one she almost never sent. He took a breath. "This isn't perfect. We still have different cities, different lives, a lot to figure out. But this is real. I'm here, and if you'll have me, I'd like to be part of wherever you're going next." She stared at him, eyes softening. Then, she reached out and took the flowers. "That's the best timing I've had in years," she whispered. Sophie grabbed both their hands, one on each side. "Can we go now? I want cocoa, and maybe cookies." Graham laughed. "You're still the boss, huh?" They stepped through the glass doors of the terminal into the crisp air of New York. People brushed past them in all directions. Cars honked, lights blinked, snow fell. But for a moment, it was just the three of them. Sophie looked up as they walked. "Are we still looking for something?" Clara glanced at Graham, her hand still in his. "No, honey," she said, voice warm. "I think we've been found." And behind them, the airport faded into the glow of the city. Not an ending, just the right place to begin. If this story touched your heart, just like Sophie's kindness touched a man who thought he had nothing left to feel, don't forget to hit that hype button and subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories. Every week, we bring you true to the heart tales of connection, healing, and unexpected hope. Because sometimes, all it takes is one small moment, a question, a smile, a choice, to change everything. Follow for more stories that stay with you long after they end. And remember, the people we're meant to find always find their way back.
Thank you for listening to this story until the end. Hopefully every moment, every detail in the story has brought you emotions, thoughts, and maybe a little joy or motivation. Thank you for spending time with us, and hope that the next stories will continue to accompany you and touch your heart.